But also knowing I was going to be able to be active today, I think gives you a little extra juice. So I'm certainly excited just to get back out there.
Left wing, the right wing, 30-plus feet. Logo crosses over, launch it. Oh my goodness!
38 seconds. That's all Caitlin Clark needed to rip the word invincible right off the New York Liberty's warm-ups. Moments earlier, the champs were coasting on an 11-point cushion, bodies loose, smiles casual, Gainbridge Fieldhouse murmuring in resignation. Indiana looked overmatched, and Clark, fresh off a 5-game quad layoff, waited at the table, a black wrap hugging her thigh like a question mark. She checked in, glanced once at the clock, and turned the arena's humidity into electricity. On her first touch, she crossed half court, stuttered left, and rose from 34 feet, a launch zone most players treat as satire. Net. The gasp felt louder than the swish. New York jogged the other way, trading puzzled looks. Breanna Stewart's eyebrow lifted just a hair. 17 seconds later, Clark glided into a semi-break, dribbled once inside the R of the Gainbridge logo, and fired from 31. Same silk, bigger noise. Sabrina Ionescu barked an adjustment nobody heard. Liberty defenders fanned out like emergency crews searching for an exit. 8 ticks after that, Sophie Cunningham wrestled a rebound, pivoted, and flipped the ball backward without even looking. Clark had already relocated to the opposite wing, toes brushing another 31-foot latitude line. Release. Explosion. 3 low.
Clark, another long 3. She's back!
Bombs. 3 different launch spots. 9 unanswered points. The 11-point deficit vanished as though the scoreboard had blinked. Stewart caught herself smiling, a reflex you see when greatness overrides rivalry. Head coach Sandy Brondello signaled timeout, but the pause couldn't muffle the thunder rolling off 18,000 shocked lungs. Seats shook, cameras trembled, ushers forgot their sections. The undefeated Liberty, who hadn't trailed by more than a possession in 2 weeks, suddenly looked ordinary. Confidence, that priceless armor, showed its first dent. Clark jogged to the huddle without a chest pound or primal scream, just a tight grin that said the quad was fine and the fuse she just lit was still burning. For Indiana, the season tilted upright. For New York, invulnerability cracked like glass under a soprano's note. And the game, no, the entire WNBA narrative, would never be the same again. Before Indiana's thunderclap, the New York Liberty looked less like a basketball team and more like a laboratory-perfect machine. 9 wins, 0 losses. A league-best defensive rating that pinned opponents under 70 points. A crisp 15-point average margin that emptied arenas long before the final buzzer. Coaches called their scouting meetings 2-hour autopsies. Every plan died on the whiteboard. It started up front, Jonquil Jones anchoring the paint, blocking drives before they were dreams. Out on the wings, Sabrina Ionescu threaded pick and rolls so clean teammates joked she was passing through Wi-Fi. Then there was Breanna Stewart, silently adding 25 a night the way an ocean adds waves, constant, inevitable. Mix in Coach Sandy Brondello's switching scheme, and New York felt like a full-court force field. Slip screens tangled in limbs, backdoor cuts met with hands, shooters blanketed 3 steps beyond the arc. The confidence grew loud. TV panels debated whether anyone would claw a single win off them before July. Vegas trimmed the Liberty's title odds until they felt like a treasury bond. Even injuries couldn't dull the steel. When Jones tweaked her ankle, bench bigs filled the gap like welders sealing metal. Rivals whispered that beating New York required hope, luck, and maybe a blackout at Barclays Center. But all that invincibility hid one pressure point. The Liberty hadn't stared down a scorer who could force them to guard 45 feet of hardwood. Their fortress was built for conventional invasions, not artillery from the logo. They trusted a scheme that squeezed the paint and dared mortals to launch from the skyline. Mortals obliged. Caitlin Clark is not mortal. And so, on a humid June night in Indiana, the unbeatable wall met the only bullet it hadn't tested against, range so limitless it bends strategy. The first crack was microscopic, just a 34-foot rainbow over a fingertip. Within moments, the wall was spider-webbed. But before we get to the shattering, you need to understand why Clark's return carried more than hype. It dragged controversy, curiosity, and 5 games worth of pent-up fire onto the floor. Quad strains sound minor until you watch them sideline a comet. Clark missed 5 games, pacing in street clothes, while Indiana sputtered win-loss, win-loss. She iced, stretched.
But also knowing I was going to be able to be active today, I think gives you a little extra juice. So I'm certainly excited just to get back out there, get playing, and
Meanwhile, the league crackled with a different debate. Was the WNBA letting defenders mug its newest marquee?
When they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game, it's been happening all season long.
Clips went viral. Clark bumped, elbowed, face swiped, no whistles, or at least not enough of them. Former Iowa coach Lisa Bluter blasted the tackle football standard. Fever coach Stephanie White asked for consistency, then bit her tongue before the fine got hefty. Social feeds split into camps, protect the superstar or toughen up. The league isn't a welcome mat. That noise smothered the gym as Clark tested the quad in private scrimmages. Teammates said the first sign she was truly back wasn't a swish but a grin. She nailed a 35-footer, turned, and simply nodded. Team trainers cleared her the morning of June 14th. The decision stayed private until lineup sheets hit Media Row. Indiana marketing suited up a surprise. Yet comeback hype alone doesn't swing a scoreboard. Clark still had to face the league's #1 defense and the weight of 5 games rust. For skeptics, it felt like perfect narrative tension, an undefeated titan versus a limping phenom. What nobody considered was that Clark had spent those idle nights replaying film, mapping out the exact seams in New York's armor. A shooter's missed time often sharpens vision even if it dulls cardio. And cardio, as it turned out, wouldn't matter for what she planned to do first. All she needed were 38 seconds, 3 touches, and a range nobody on the scouting report could fathom. The quad wrap stayed on, but the leash snapped clean. Clock shows 2:11 in the first. Liberty up 24-13. Stewart just banked a runner, wagging 2 fingers at the crowd for hush duty. Enter Clark. 0:38 mark. She strolls across the midcourt logo, flicks a casual crossover, sees a sliver of daylight, and launches from 34 feet. The ball seems to hang, as if pulling every stair upward. Net. By halftime, Clark sat on 25 points, already her highest first-half total. The broadcasters began ticking off superlatives like bingo calls, but they couldn't keep pace with the math. Final ledger, 30 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 7 threes. That single stat line had never existed in league history. She became the first WNBA player with 3 30-5-5 games in her first 2 seasons, nudging past Candace Parker. She also leapt to 4th fastest ever to 850 career points, doing in 45 games what took legends a full season and change. Yet the fireworks weren't just milestones, they were efficiency gems. The 7 threes came on 10 attempts, each one deeper than the last. Shot chart analysts later overlaid her makes onto a normal court. Half of them hovered outside the broadcast camera's default frame. Commentators joked ESPN needed drone angles for future telecasts. Records 6 through 8 came courtesy of playmaking. Clark's 9 dimes produced an additional 22 points. Combined bucket plus assist chains, and she directly influenced 52, a figure only Diana Taurasi had eclipsed, and she needed 565 games to log her 10th such night. Clark now sits second all-time with 9 at game 45. Each tally felt heavier because of the opponent. Breaking records against a rebuilding roster is fireworks on demand. Doing it versus the defending champs makes the sky look bigger. Media scrums swarmed the post-game tunnel, shoving in questions about greatest performance ever. Clark shrugged. It's fun, but we're 500, back to work. That humility landed like a hammer. Greatness paired with appetite scares rivals more than any stat. 8 new entries in the record book, and we're still not at the most important variable, the teammates who turned a volcanic solo act into a wire-to-wire team win. The box score glitters for Clark, but zoom out and you'll see a constellation. Aaliyah Boston is the biggest star beside her. 15 points, 8 boards, 6 assists. Most centers feast in the paint. Boston orchestrates like a conductor. From the elbow she threads backdoor finds, then pivots to bulldoze Stewart on the block. Her 4-assist average forces defenses to stay honest. Double Clark and Boston becomes a lighthouse, beaming passes to open shooters. Lexi Hull shot 4 for -5 from deep, tying a career-high 18. Liberty corners collapsed on every Clark drive, and Hull punished them with radar accuracy. She leads the league north of 50% from 3, but the more stunning stat is her release time. 0.61 seconds from catch to launch, per tracking data. That speed disallows late closeouts, a mechanic nightmare for New York's switch-heavy D. Kelsey Mitchell, the veteran flamethrower, poured in 22. Her signature came in the 4th. Liberty trimmed the gap to 9. Stewart yanked momentum with an and 1, and Mitchell responded by slicing through traffic for a lefty banker plus the foul. Crowd back up, Liberty momentum stunted. Bench spark Sydney Colson added 10-6 in just 17 minutes, orchestrating second-unit sets that looked suspiciously like the starters, ball zipping, shooters striding into rhythm. Her vocal defense turned several Liberty possessions into 5-second violations of frustration. Added up, and the Fever posted 102 on a team that hadn't surrendered 90 all season. They buried a franchise record 17 threes, assisted on 28 baskets, and never once trailed after Clark's 38-second outburst. That's not star-centric, that's symphonic. The underlying lesson, Clark's gravity is nuclear, but nuclear power still needs a grid. Boston's reads, Hull's sharpshooting, Mitchell's daggers, and Colson's energy built the infrastructure that carried the blast through 40 minutes. Indiana's coaches spent 2 practices drilling a simple gospel: turn the champ's strengths against them. The Liberty love switching? Fine, drag their bigs into the hinterlands. They love paint touches? Seal the rim with Boston, live with mid-range pull-ups. Defensively, Indiana switched 1 through 4 but peeled Boston late. Her show and recover erased Breanna Stewart pocket passes that feast on slow hedges. Guards ice side pick and rolls, funneling drives into help where Mitchell and Hull slap down strips. Result, 17 New York turnovers, 10 Fever leak-out points, and a perpetual sense that the champs were dribbling in rush hour traffic. Offensively, the Fever spammed 5-out spacing. Clark's orbit pulled Stewart and Ionescu beyond comfort. Boston capitalized by ghost screening, then slipping to wide-open elbows. From there, she could shoot the 15-footer or zip a cross-court dart to corner snipers. When Liberty overhelped, Indiana backcut. Mitchell's layup parade started exactly that way. Transition lanes stretched too. 5 times in the third quarter, Clark grabbed a long rebound and fired a 60-foot quarterback pass before her sneakers crossed the timeline. Each bucket felt demoralizing because it skipped New York's vaunted half-court shield entirely. But maybe the most underrated tactic, patience. The Fever never chased home run plays once they had the lead. They hit singles, as Coach White preaches, milking clock and forcing New York to defend 18-second stretches impossible to sustain at that altitude. Blueprints get copied. Expect coaches league-wide to dissect this tape like the Zapruder film. The question, do they have Clark's range, Boston's vision, Hull's flamethrower, and Mitchell's nerve? If not, imitation may prove harder than invention. Sunday morning headlines read like plot twists. Liberty no longer perfect. Fever's blueprint exposes Achilles' heel. Clark MVP odds / overnight. Sportsbooks shifted title lines. Indiana vaulted from fringe to plausible. Front office chatter surged. One rumor linked New York to veteran rim protector Jonquil-style insurance. Fearing Boston's bruising opened a template for every playoff foe. Another had the Liberty exploring an extra perimeter stopper. Clark just wrote a neon sign, guard us 40 feet out or suffer. Elsewhere, the competition committee fast-tracked a meeting on physicality and superstar protection. After an earlier eye poke that left Clark blinking blood, debate over flagrant thresholds flared. Traditionalists warn against coddling. Marketers rebut that selling out arenas requires healthy headliners. June's boardroom arguments could sculpt rule tweaks by August. Social media, meanwhile, spun culture war threads. WNBA finally exciting. Cheered new fans drawn by Clark's limitless range. Purists countered that hype ignores the decades of excellence preceding her. The truth, as usual, lies in the blend. Clark's star power shines brighter because it illuminates a league already rich with talent. And nothing spotlights a product like a genuine rivalry. Liberty Fever now checks that box in fluorescent ink. Most tangible of all, standings. Indiana's victory nudged them into first place in the Commissioner's Cup East. A seed that leads to cash bonuses and, more important, national eyeballs. New York, stung, circles July 4 for revenge at Barclays. Tickets have already spiked into resale territory usually reserved for playoff rounds. 138-second storm changed odds sheets, schedules, and maybe rulebooks. But we're not done until we land on why that thunder matters to fans clicking this very video. The box score will live online forever, but numbers can't capture the visceral jolt of watching an 11-point cliff vanish under 3 impossible shots. Those 38 seconds weren't just highlights, they were a statement. Ceilings are myths, dynasties are breakable, and the arc of women's basketball is stretching deeper, faster, louder. If you felt the chill when logo range bombs rained, if you believe the Fever's blueprint just redrafted the WNBA map, drop Fever in the comments. Smash subscribe, flick the bell, and gear up. Because July 4th at Barclays is locked, loaded, and one push notification away. Trust me, you won't want to blink.